1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, you're listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. We are a general interest independent bookstore located in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. This year, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've had to close our store and cancel in-person events. But Skylight is your neighborhood bookstore, and we are finding ways to create community even while we're far apart. In the coming weeks, we'll be putting out lots of new audio content to help you discover new books, connect with authors, and check in with your favorite booksellers. To learn more about how you can help keep Skylight alive, please visit our website at skylightbooks.com or check out our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Xin chào, hello. My name is Nguyễn Phan, author of the novel The Mountains Sing. Thank you so much, Skylight Books, for hosting this chat. In normal circumstances, I could have been at Skylight having a conversation with the amazing Nguyễn, author of The Sympathizer. However, the coronavirus pandemic destroyed my book tour. It sent me into a deep panic as my city, Jakarta in Indonesia, became a hotspot for the virus. So when sheltering in place no longer felt safe, I left with my husband and son to Germany, where we will unite with our daughter when our self-quarantine period of 14 days is over. So I'm now in temporary accommodation in a small town on the outskirts of Munich. Outside is a beautiful spring day filled with sunshine, bird songs, and flowers. The sky is so clear, so beautiful, as if innocent of all the death and devastation which is going on. I hope that you stay safe wherever you are, and I hope you will allow books to transport you away from the current situation and from the worries that all of us experience at the moment. My sincere thanks to independent booksellers who have been braving the difficulties to continue to deliver literature to readers. At this very difficult moment, my mind often travels to the poetry line of the Vietnamese poet Phùng Quán. He once wrote, "Có những phút ngã lòng, tôi vịn câu thơ mà đứng dậy. Whenever I feel down, I gather myself into the poetry line to pull myself up." So reading poetry, fiction and non-fiction has been able to help me with deal with the pandemic, and I hope you feel the same way. So for those who have not heard about The Mountains Sing, my novel is about the 20th century Vietnamese history via the lives of 4 generations of a Vietnamese family. I actually took big risk when writing this novel because it deals with many historical events considered sensitive in Vietnam, such as the land reform and the root causes of the division between the North and the South of Vietnam, and why the Vietnam War happened. Because such issues are normally censored in Vietnamese literature, I chose to write the novel in English, the language which I only had the chance to learn at 8th grade. So during the 7 years I worked on the book, I had to use a dictionary many times. The biggest challenge and also joy was to transfer the Vietnamese elements of my culture into the English language. I wanted to immerse readers into the Vietnamese setting, and there's a lot of proverbs, sayings, Vietnamese poetry and songs and lullabies in the novel, and all of the language and Vietnamese names, Vietnamese language and names in the book appear in the real Vietnamese way with the full tonal marks. So my hope is that any reader will become familiar with the Vietnamese culture, Vietnamese traditions, customs, and practices after reading the book. So you become a part of the Vietnamese culture. So you may ask what inspired me to write this book. When I was born, both of my grandmothers had already died, so I was always very jealous of my friends who had a grandma to tell them stories and tales of their village and history of their family. So I told myself that one day I would write a story with a grandmother in it, to be able to have a grandma. And I knew I wanted to create a world with a grandmother and granddaughter in it, but I didn't find the key to such a world until one day in 2012 I was traveling in a car to a self-defense class with a Vietnamese friend, and this happened in Manila in the Philippines where I was living and working. So when I asked him about his wartime experiences, he told me that in 1972, during the height of the Vietnam War, he was living with his grandmother in Hanoi. Both of his parents had gone to Russia at that time, and his grandma was the one who kept him alive during the bombing raids. And his descriptions were so vivid that I went home that night, and after having cooked my kids' dinner and putting them to bed, it was very late, but I sat down at my computer. I was driven by his story, and so I googled and found audio clips of the sirens that warned citizens in Hanoi about approaching B-52 bombers. I listened to the sirens, I listened to the broadcast warning citizens about the bombings, and then with tears running down my face, I wrote 2,000 words, which could become the first chapter of the novel. So I had no idea how the story would develop, but I felt so moved by what I had just written. It felt so real, and the voice of the grandmother in the story, Grandma Diệu Lan, felt so like a grandma I always wanted to have. So I decided that she would have a lot of children, and each child would be a witness of a significant historical event of Vietnam. So that was my vague idea. So I sat down at my writing desk each day. I quit my full-time job to be able to work on a novel. So I worked on it every day, and I developed the character, and it was a very lonely process, as you could imagine. And I was wondering all the time, who is going to read this novel? What the hell am I doing? Because I'm writing this in my second language, in the English language, which I only had the chance to learn in 8th grade. So I had to use the dictionary quite a lot, and at the same time I was reading a lot of English books to be able to improve my English vocabularies. But I felt so moved by the story and the wish, to have a grandma, that I kept going. And so I'm going to read. So the book is told in the voices of two women, Grandma Diệu Lan and her granddaughter Hương. So Hương is someone who is similar to me in the sense that she always wanted to be a writer, but she had a strong fear for censorship and what would happen to her if she wrote about historical events. So, but in the end, she was compelled to write because she realized that she has a duty to document events which otherwise could have been forgotten. This is the opening scene of the novel. The Tallest Mountains, Hà Nội, 2012. My grandmother used to tell me that when our ancestors die, they don't just disappear, they continue to watch over us. And now I feel her watching me as I light a match, setting fire to 3 sticks of incense. On the ancestral altar, behind the wooden bell and plates of steaming food, my grandmother's eyes glow as an orange-blue flame springs up, consuming the incense. I shake the incense to put out the fire. As it smolders, curtains of smoke and fragrance spiral towards heaven, calling spirits of the dead to return. Bà ơi, I whisper, raising the incense above my head. Through the mist veiling the border between our two worlds, she smiles at me. I miss you, Grandma. A breeze gusts through the open window, holding my face like Grandma's hands once did. Hương, my beloved daughter, the tree outside my window rustled her words. I'm here with you always. I set the incense into the bowl in front of Grandma's portrait. Her gentle features radiate in the incense perfume. I stare at the scars on her neck. Remember what I said, darling. Her voice murmurs on the restless branches. The challenges faced by Vietnamese people throughout history are as tall as the tallest mountains. If you stand too close, you won't be able to see their peaks. Once you step away from the current of lives, you will have the full view. So, in the Grandma Diệu Lan told her granddaughter Hương, the challenges faced by Vietnamese people throughout history are as tall as the tallest mountains. So this is one of the reasons why I named the novel The Mountains Sing, because my message is that even though we as human beings, not just Vietnamese but many peoples around the world, we experience challenges, but in the end, our spirit for survival, our sense of hope, our love for peace will help us overcome all these challenges, and our spirit for survival and our belief in the goodness of the people and of the world will be the songs of our own survival. So that's why I named the book The Mountains Sing. And also throughout the book, there's an image of the Sơn Ca bird. Sơn Ca can be translated as the mountains sing. So this is a golden bird carved by Hương father, who had gone to war to fight against the Americans. And I will need to let you discover what happened to Hương father. But during the war, he was, as with many other Northern Vietnamese soldiers, he walked for many months through the Ho Chí Minh Trail to be able to cutting through jungles and valleys of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia to be able to get to the south of Vietnam, where he was fighting against the southern Vietnamese army and also the Americans and their allies. So during his trip, he was missing his wife and his daughter a lot. So he decided to carve a bird, the Sơn Ca bird, as a gift for his daughter. And this bird is also the symbol of the war's devastation, because in the book it demonstrates that Vietnamese forests and jungles were full of birds, and flowers and butterflies, but in the reign of Agent Orange, these living animals or these beautiful creatures, they died, then they disappear. But somehow, the bird stays with Hương throughout her life, and she hears the bird's song whenever she misses her father. So you just heard a little bit in the voice of Hương, and now I'm going to read to you a part of Grandma Diệu Lan. So I created Grandma Diệu Lan in the hope that I would have a grandmother who would tell me stories. So this is the beginning of Grandma's story as she told them to Hương. The Fortune Teller, Nghệ An Province, 1930-1942. Guava. Remember how we used to wander around the old quarter of Hanoi? We often stopped in front of a house on Hàng Gai. I didn't know anyone who lived there on Silk Street, but we stood in front of the house, peering through its gate. Remember how beautiful everything was? Wooden doors featured exquisite carvings of flowers and birds. Lacquered shutters gleamed under the sun, and ceramic dragons soared atop the roof's curving edges. The house was a traditional namzan with 5 wooden sections, remember? And there was a front yard paved with red bricks. Now I can tell you the reason I lingered in front of that house. It looks just like my childhood home in Nghệ An. As I stood there with you, I could almost hear the happy chatter of my parents, my brother Công and Auntie Tu. Ah, you asked me why I never mentioned to you about having a brother and an aunt. I'll tell you about them soon, but don't you want to visit my childhood home first? To go there, you and I need to travel 300 kilometers from Hanoi. We follow the national highway, passing Nam Định, Ninh Bình, and Thanh Hóa provinces. Then we turn left at a pagoda called Phu Định, crossing several communes before arriving at Vĩnh Phúc, a village in the north of Vietnam. The village name is special, Guava, as it means forever blessed. At Vĩnh Phúc, anyone will gladly show you the gate to our ancestors' home, the Trần family's house. They walk with you along the village road, passing a pagoda with the ends of its roof curving like the fingers of a splendid dancer, passing ponds where children and buffaloes splash around. During summer, you gasp at the clouds of purple flowers blooming on swan trees and red gout flowers sailing through the air like burning boats. During the rice harvest season, the village road will spread out its golden carpet of straws to welcome you. In the middle of the village, you arrive in front of a large estate surrounded by a garden filled with fruit trees. Peeking through the gate, you see a house similar to the one we saw on Silver Street, only more charming and much larger. The people who take you there will ask whether you are related to the Trần family. If you tell them the truth, Guava, they'd be astonished. The Trần family's members have either died, been killed, or disappeared. You learn that 7 families have occupied this building since 1955. None of them are relatives. My beloved daughter, my beloved granddaughter, don't look so shocked. Do you understand why I decided to tell you about our family? If our stories survive, we will not die, even when our bodies are no longer here on this earth. The Trần family's house is where I was born, got married, and gave birth to your mother Ngọc, your uncles Thuận, Đạt, Sáng, and your aunt Hạnh. You didn't know this, but I have another son, Minh. He's my firstborn, and I love him very, very much. But I don't know whether he's dead or alive. He was taken away from me 17 years ago, and I haven't seen him since. I'll explain what happened to him later, but first, let me take you back to one particular summer day in May 1930, when I was 10 years old. So this is the first part of Grandma Diệu Lan's storytelling to her granddaughter son. And you will see in the book that Grandma Diệu Lan tells Hương. Hương is nicknamed Guava in the stories of grandmother Diệu Lan. Grandmother Diệu Lan called Hương Guava because the name Hương means fragrance, and she believes that evil spirits hover above the earth, and they could kidnap beautiful children. So if you call a child an ugly name, the evil spirits could not notice. So this is why a very common practice in Vietnamese. We call our children really ugly names like guava or potato or so to distract the evil spirit. So Grandma Diệu Lan told Guava the stories about their family from 1920 to 1970, and until and then from then on, Hương will let the reader see the events which will happen to their family after that. So I decided to alternate the voices. One chapter is written in the voice of Grandma Diệu Lan, another chapter is written and the next chapter is written in the voice of Hương. So why did I choose women as storytellers in the Mountains Sing? I have read a lot of books on Vietnam in English and on the Vietnam War, and I felt that there is a lack of space for women to tell stories. Especially women who are civilians, who often have to bear the most severe consequences of war and the destruction of historical events. And normally when it comes to Vietnam War literature, the stories are written by veterans or about soldiers who went through combat. And I wanted to give voice to women because in Vietnamese culture, women are the symbol of survival, of struggle, and throughout our history, we Vietnamese women have proven our ability to not only manage the household but also to lead. The famous Vietnamese female figures, for example, are the Trung sisters who led the Vietnamese in defeating against the Chinese invaders. So I wanted to give voice to women in the story, but the Mountain Sing also give voices to the stories of the experienced by male characters. For example, of Hương uncles and father, and to let readers gain access to these voices, I employ a very common or important symbol in Vietnamese life, which is the use of diary and the use of letters. So you will discover the voices of the minor characters in my novel through these symbols. So I have so when I was little, my parents did not want me to become a writer, but I'm glad I disobeyed them because I think I feel most happy when I'm able to write, and I love reading, and I believe in the role of literature, because in just like in the words of Hương in the Mountains Sing, Hương thinks to herself, if people read other countries' literature, they would understand more about about other cultures, and there would be no war on earth. And I think if we read other people's literature right now, we get access to their culture and see them more as human beings rather than than numbers or statistics. And I'm very much saddened by the racism which takes place at the moment against Asians. This morning I was horrified to read about an acid attack on an Asian woman in New York. And this has been determined that she was attacked because of the pandemic situation, and of people believing that that Asians are carriers of the virus, and we are the cause of this pandemic. And myself personally, I have also experienced racism, and I just want to reach out to readers who are willing to read this book or any book from Asia at the moment, that I'm grateful to you, for opening the door to our story, so that you are able to connect with us on a more personal level. And I think despite our differences, in cultures or in languages, in essence, as demonstrated in my book, all human beings on this world are similar in our wish to have a normal life, a peaceful life, where we can sing and dance and eat and spend time with our family and friends and loved ones. So I think it's time for us to come together rather than to fight against each other during this pandemic. As you may have noticed, I use a lot of Vietnamese language in the novel, and one of the important elements which I employed is the use of Vietnamese proverbs. For example, I can give you examples of proverbs that I use. For example, the first one is trong cái rủi có cái may. That means good luck hides inside bad luck. I often think about this proverb when I face an undesirable circumstance, and I know I can make the best out of it. Another proverb which can be applicable to this situation is lá lành đùm lá rách. Intact leaves safeguard ripped leaves. Một nắm khi đói bằng một gói khi no. One handful of food when hungry equals to one bundle of food when full. So it highlights the importance of sharing our resources at the moment, and I hope each of us will reach out to other people in need and help them, because my heart goes out to all those who have been sick, or who have family members who have perished in this pandemic. But I'm really worried about the people who live in slum areas, who have no access to clean water to wash their hands, or people who have lost their job and don't have food to eat, or refugees who have to live in crowded shelter homes, or who have no shelter at all, who are on the street. So I just hope that we will work together to overcome these difficulties, and we will see into the humanity of other cultures during this very, very stressful and worrying time. Thank you so much for the time you spent with me on today's talk. I really hope I can return to the US for the book tour very, very soon when this pandemic is over. I have so many stories from Vietnam that I would like to share with you. To end this discussion, I would like to gift you a lullaby, which is featured in the novel. This is the lullaby sung by Grandma Diệu Lan and her daughter to children, to Hương and to children whenever the children are in distress. So this is the lullaby. Ơi, con cò mà đi ăn đêm, lội phai cành mềm, lộn cổ xuống ao. Ông ơi ông vớt tôi nào, tôi có lòng nào, ông hãy sao mang. Có sao thì sao nước trong, đừng sao nước đục đau lòng có con. Ơi ơi. Thank you. Xin cảm ơn.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.